up, everybody? Welcome back. We are here for another episode of Life on Long Island. So the first thing that we want to cover, of course, is the difference between the North Shore and the South Shore of Long Island. And while some things may seem kind of obvious, some others are not. So the first thing that we want to cover is obviously the geography, right? Because North Shore of Long Island tends to be very rocky and hilly. So the beaches really aren't that full of sand or loungeable. Also, the topography of how you drive is really sometimes very scary depending on where you are. In towns like Rocky Point, where the roads are kind of narrow and very steep, if you're not used to driving in the snow and the icy conditions, parts of the island might not be for you. While the South Shore offers a very flat landscape, and during the winters typically gets less snowfall because of the coastal winds coming off of the South Shore of Long Island. So if you're considering where to move, the first thing you want to consider, are you more of a North Shore person or a South Shore person? And what does that look like? Let's break down 10 things that are different between the North Shore of Long Island and the South Shore of Long Island. So number one, the North Shore of Long Island provides you the Long Island Sound, which is a much calmer body of water, while the South Shore of Long Island provides you access to the Atlantic Ocean, which for fishermen is really the preferred spot. Two, obviously with that comes the water conditions. You're going to get glass-like surfaces on the Long Island Sound at times, which is perfect for things like boating and sailing. South Shore, you're going to get awesome waves and really great fishing off the South Shore in the Atlantic Ocean. So we want to make sure that if you love to fish, you might want to charter a boat out of the South Shore of Long Island. Three, beaches. As we covered before, the North Shore of Long Island is probably not where you're going to want to go if you want to build a sand castle. It's filled with rocks in some places that cover the entire surface. It can be very difficult to walk on without shoes and probably not your cup of tea. However, the South Shore of Long Island, even all the way out to Montauk Point, has nothing but awesome sand. Some of those beaches are suffering from erosion, so you want to make sure that you check into the beach before you go there, especially on a hot day, because these beaches can pack out. In fact, at Jones Beach, they will close the parking lots when they reach capacity, because that's how many people will travel to these beaches. So do yourself a favor and do your homework first. There are 118 beaches on Long Island to choose from, so you have a ton of options stretching all the way out. One of my personal favorites on the South Shore is Corey Beach, which provides a little more of an intimate setting. Not as many people there usually, and you still get all the sand that you want. And when you go out to Montauk Point, there's actually sections of the beach that have purple sand. Can't find it anywhere else. It's definitely one of our bragging points for our beaches here. Next up on our list is landscape. As we covered before, the North Shore of Long Island offers a ton of hilly destinations, while the South Shore is a little more flat. The North Shore is an attraction for a lot of people who like to mountain bike and hike and climb and do things like that, because we have the landscape for it, while the South Shore is more of a flat, easier paced area. Next on our list is communities. While the North Shore of Long Island is generally associated with affluent communities because it boasts things like the Gold Coast, the South Shore also hosts a few affluent communities, but definitely is known for its nightlife. Inside those North Shore communities, you could find tiny villages and towns and historic venues, even the historic landmark of President Theodore Roosevelt's house. As we discussed before, there are a ton of options for boating and fishing on Long Island. So next up on our list, under boating and fishing, we want to make sure that we really hone in on, if you own a sailboat, you might want to consider living on the North Shore of Long Island, because those waters will allow you for some of the best sailing that you can find. And if you own a bigger vessel and you want to do some chartering and bring in some bigger fish, going out to Montauk Point and chartering off of there will give you the deep waters, so you could wrestle something into the boat of your liking. Next up is wildlife and nature. While we have a ton of wildlife and nature, North Shore hosts more things like ospreys and one of the larger animals like deer and things like that, while the South Shore, because it's not as wooded and not as secluded, you'll get more of the average birds that you could watch. But either way, nature lovers love Long Island because we have a diverse amount of species across Long Island to watch. While Long Island has a ton of features in itself, you may want to hop a ferry and hop over to Connecticut, which you could do from the North Shore. You could also hop a ferry from the North Shore and go over to Shelter Island, which is an amazing day trip if you decide you want to make it. If you're on the South Shore, your ferries are going to take you to places like Fire Island, Manhattan. There generally is not as many islands to travel from on the South Shore. If you're also leaving from the North Shore, you could actually take a ferry up to New England, which is an amazing ride as well. So if you're considering traveling and you have work up north, you might want to consider living on the North Shore of Long Island because you have a ton of access to transportation. On the topic of transportation, we also have to discuss the highways real quick, because we have the Long Island Expressway, 495, we have Sunrise Highway, and those both run east to west primarily, and then amongst those are a ton of parkways which run southeast to northwest. There are very few roads that run perfectly north to south on Long Island. So wherever you're depending on going, add an extra 15 minutes because you're probably going to have to take some kind of weird, obscure way to get where you want to go, especially if you're traveling from north to south. So as we said before, the North Shore is drenched in cultural history, including President Theodore's house, as well as the Vanderbilt Mansion and the site where the Great Gatsby basically took place. While the South Shore of Long Island offers a ton of culture and history as well, it's definitely better known for its amazing nightlife. With like the Nautical Mile and Montauk and a ton of villages like Patchogue Village, Bayshore Village, Babylon Village. It really has a ton to offer if you're looking to go catch some live music or possibly go see play. Everything is down on the South Shore. Last on our list, of course, is transportation. Of course, we touched on the ferries, we touched on the expressway, but what about the railroad system? While there is a north and a south shore line for the Long Island Railroad, the most direct route is going to be the Long Island Railroad Ronkonkoma line. That runs down the middle of the island and it'll take you into Manhattan, it'll take you into Jamaica Station where you can do a bunch of transfers and hit some subways to get to the parts of the city that you want to go. Truly, transportation on Long Island couldn't be better. We offer public buses. There is a ton of transportation options when you're here. A lot of people don't realize inside of Suffolk County and Nassau County, there are also individual private transportation companies which you could reach out to that are also offered for people with disabilities, special needs, and special transportation requests. On top of that, we have your basic Uber and Yellow Cab if you're ever in a jam. And then there's also Suffolk County alternate transportation and things like that to really get you around. So you should never get stuck. On top of which, we're all pretty friendly, and if you have a neighbor, you probably have a ride somewhere you need to go. On that subject, you do have to budget driving and owning a car on Long Island. Very few things are walkable, but if you live close enough to a train station or a bus station, one could make the argument that you probably don't need a car. So as you're trying to decide where you want to live on Long Island, you have over 100 towns to choose from. Some of the major townships that are worth noting are the following: Amityville, Babylon, Brookhaven, East Hampton, Huntington, Islip, Riverhead, Smithtown, Southampton, and Freehold. If you're not into the beach and you're more into lakes, Long Island actually has over 200 lakes and ponds that you could visit, whether you're into fishing or maybe kayaking or paddleboarding. Lake Ronkonkoma is our largest freshwater lake, and it is really beautiful there. On top of our lakes, we also have state parks, 16 to be exact. They are all absolutely gorgeous and offer different unique settings for each of them. So if you're into parks and you're looking for something to do outside that's low cost and you get a little bit of fresh air, consider visiting one of our 16 state parks. So whether you're visiting Long Island or you're deciding you want to live here and you're going to buy your first house, or you're downsizing and you're trying to figure out where should I go next, my biggest piece of advice would be consider your lifestyle. What do you enjoy doing when you're not working or taking care of that home? Do you enjoy what the North Shore has to offer? Do you enjoy what the South Shore has to offer? Are you going to be like me and live in the middle of the island so that you don't have to make a choice and you're 15 minutes from both sides, making it the best place to live? I personally feel like if you love the beaches, South Shore is probably for you. If you love hiking, the North Shore is probably for you. If you love shopping, well, the center of the island is actually probably for you because we have a ton of shopping malls, from the Walt Whitman Mall to the Smith Haven Mall to the Roosevelt Field Mall to the Riverhead Tanger outlets to the Deer Park outlets. There is a ton of shopping to be done, and coincidentally, they all fall kind of middle of the island. So depending what you're into, depending what you like to do, Long Island has to offer. If sports are your thing, we have all the sports teams that you want. We have football, basketball, baseball, hockey, and in many cases, we have more than one team to choose from. So if you've grown up your entire life and you're getting ready to move to Long Island and you absolutely hated one team, we got a different team for you to root for. That's okay. We have the New York Jets, the New York Giants, and the Buffalo Bills, all located in New York. We have the New York Rangers, the New York Islanders, my personal favorite. And we have the Buffalo Sabres, all located in New York. We have the Yankees, we have the Mets. So as you can see, you don't have to choose. If you're a Knicks fan, great. If you're a Nets fan, that's okay too. If you're neither, we'll have you here anyway. So my favorite part of Long Island is obviously that they have all these different things to do and many cultural aspects that you could appreciate. When traveling into Manhattan, you have the world at your fingertips, from world-renowned museums such as the Museum of Modern Art and the Museum of Natural History, and you have obviously the real estate and the landscape and all those things to take into consideration. My advice to you is, if you're considering living on Long Island, definitely take in everything it has to offer. It took me a lot of years as a Long Islander to actually visit the Statue of Liberty. Sometimes a staycation is not a bad idea. Are you a foodie? Let's talk food for a minute. Long Island has you covered. with one of the most diverse food options anywhere that I've ever seen. And I've traveled a decent amount. Long Island's got you covered when it comes to your tacos, your pizza, your cultural dishes. We have Jamaican, we have Mexican, we have Latin, we have Portuguese, we have every option for food that you can imagine here on Long Island. And it's stretched out from tip to tip. I'm talking Montauk to Manhattan. You have everything you want to eat. And of course, it's New York, so we do have the best pizza and bagels that you could find. So whatever you're looking for, we're going to cover it here in this channel. If we didn't cover it here today, that's okay. Leave a comment below. Let us know what you want to see. Let us know what you want to cover, and we'll make a video personally just for you. Look forward to seeing you soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video, and we'll catch you on the next one.